A step closer to hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority President and CEO Bill Hanna is here to explain how an 8-mile rail extension between Dyer and Hammond could create a crucial Hoosier gateway in Chicago. Plus, Indianapolis-based NetLogix was founded by a woman 2 decades ago. Audrey Taylor, a pioneer in Indy's tech sector, and she's here to talk about keys for growth throughout the state and beyond. And the Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs has been renamed in honor of Paul O'Neill's prestigious career and his $30 million gift to the school. Dean John Graham explains how it will help the largest school of public administration and public policy in the U.S. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Stand by for top of show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, big news this week in Northwest Indiana. The Federal Transit Administration giving the South Shore Line Westlake Corridor project a positive rating. Now that means it's a step closer to perhaps $440 million in federal funding. The 8-mile rail extension between Dyer and Hammond viewed as a critical link to connect Hoosiers with high-paying jobs in Chicago, creating a long-talked-about gateway to the Windy City. The president and CEO of the Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority, Bill Hanna, is here now to explain how it can also address economic and population issues as well. And Bill, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
This is big news. In your view, how big is this positive rating from the Federal Transit Administration, meaning you're in line for some big funding?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is critical. It's more than just another step. It's a threshold milestone that we had to get past. Basically, I was telling someone the other day, if you think about like qualifying for the Boston Marathon, it's hard to qualify, then you get there and you have to finish. Yeah. That's really what's happened. We've been qualified for funding, and now we have a couple of steps left to go through. But this is the gate. It was the pass-fail for the project, and it's the federal government saying this is a high-value project and it's worthy of moving forward.
Let's talk about the project in the South Shore. An 8-mile link extension between Dyer and Hammond would connect into the existing line. Talk about this piece of the project and why it's so critical.
It's critical. So for over 100 years, we've had the South Shore train. It's a single-line rail running into Chicago, and you've had over 500 miles of rail on the other side of the border and huge population growth. And so what we're doing here is we're adding a leg, about 8 miles. We're connecting to Southlake County. We're seeing population overflow from Illinois into our area, but now it's become positive too. People looking for the nice school systems that we have, the low taxes and so forth. So this is an amenity that really connects us to the 3rd largest economy in Chicago. It turns the South Shore train from a train into a commuter system for job access.
Okay, so this is a two-edged sword there. You talk about jobs, so this would connect to what typically are higher paying jobs or high paying jobs, certainly in Chicago and the Chicagoland area. And then on the flip side, the potential to attract residents in Chicagoland or in Illinois to come over and actually live in Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think a lot about New Jersey or Northern Virginia as examples where, you know, there was a day, I remember being a kid, and you talk about New Jersey as being separate from New York, and those days are over. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're heading. You know, it's the transportation connectivity, 40% higher wages in Chicago for the same job in Indiana, and the fact that there's as many jobs in the loop as there is in the entire state of Indiana makes this, as you said, a gateway for Hoosiers to Chicago, not just Northwest Indiana, but the entire state of Indiana.
And you talk about how this project has come together, this big, massive infrastructure project over the years with Mitch Daniels as governor and Eric Holcomb at the time as a key assistant, and Pete Visklosky in the role he has played at the federal level, and how those players are still, have really come full circle.
Yeah, it's really a testament to bipartisan leadership, and it says something about Indiana. We're focused on jobs first, way ahead of politics, and that's in contrast to a national scene. And you know, Mitch Daniels was a key architect, a visionary, thought long-term about Northwest Indiana, sat in the same room with Pete Visklosky and Eric Holcomb at the time, as you said, on the staff. Now Indiana governor. Mike Pence signed the bill into law to fund it. And so you can see a progression in leadership and vision. And so we not only envision things here, we carry them out and get them done. And I think that says to the private sector, this is a safe place to do business. It's the right place to do business.
A landmark project. Let's talk about next steps. You've reached this major milestone. When could we actually see dirt being turned and maybe a completion date out there?
Yeah, well, that's really, you know, the mark of success. So we talk about building the projects and so forth. The private money is a huge part, property values for people, real people getting real jobs. And to that end, the first jobs will happen late summer 2020 when we start construction. So we're just right around the corner here, a little over a year. Really excited about it. People have talked about this for 30 years.
Wow.
And I will be very happy the day that I see the men and women of the trades and groups in Northwest Indiana breaking ground on this project.
And very, very quickly, potentially, when could we see, you know, the track up and running?
2023 roughly.
Okay.
Taking people to and from work.
Very good. Bill Hanna, Northwest Indiana Regional Development Authority. Big news on the South Shore project with major funding news. And Bill, as always, thanks for being here. We'll continue to follow the story.
Thank you.
All right. Well, also making headlines this week, local, state, and federal leaders gathered at the Regan Street Institute in Indianapolis to talk about innovation in healthcare and technology in Indiana. Indiana Startup Day included remarks from Ed Simcox, Chief Technology Officer for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and also spotlighted 7 Indiana healthcare startups. The goal for federal officials to learn ideas and best practices that they can then take and implement in other parts of the country. Still ahead, Indiana University's world-renowned School for Public Policy and Environmental Affairs gets a new name thanks to a generous donation from a famous alum. The dean of the school, John Graham, is here to talk about what's behind the name change and what's next. But first, we learn more about the driving force behind a growing Indianapolis-based tech consulting company. NetLogix founder and CEO Audrey Taylor is here to share how diversity and inclusion and a staff of predominantly women are some of the keys to success. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, originally from the United Kingdom, Audrey Taylor's IT background began in the insurance, HR, and finance industries. Since founding NetLogix in Indianapolis in 1998, her nationally certified women's business enterprise has solved complex challenges for organizations all over the U.S. and beyond. CEO and founder of the company, Audrey Taylor, here now with more on the firm's growth and how she maintains a unique culture at the company. And Audrey, it's always great to have you on the show.
Nice to be here, Gary.
And congratulations, 20 years, that is an accomplishment. Well, I have to ask you, and I know you get asked this a fair amount. So 20 years ago, from the UK, you want to start this technology company. How in the heck did you pick Indianapolis and Indiana to start the company?
I think Indianapolis picked me. IT is an amazing career because it's a global career. There's no requalifications. There's no need to learn new languages. So I was going to travel the world one IT project at a time. The first questions out the gate was I don't speak any other languages. So I would come to the US and I was offered Houston, too hot, New York, I had some family there and I didn't want to go there, and Indianapolis. So I picked Indianapolis.
Start here, and the rest is history. And it's a great story, the growth story at NetLogix. Give us, first of all, a thumbnail, just a quick business model, if you will, for what NetLogix is all about.
So we're a consulting services company, which means we help organizations manage the change that's necessary to keep pace with the modern world. Change can be forced on you by legislative changes, by industry changes, by mergers, by separations, by acquisitions. But what we do is work with an organization to ensure that that change delivers value to them. So we come on, we work alongside your team, we move you from where you are to where you want to be, and then we leave you in a better place. Hopefully then you call us back.
That's right, and your customer base, do you have a typical customer, or is it all over the board?
So the standard answer is we're about 60% public sector. So the public sector does an awful lot of transition forced on them by government changes. So we work in multiple states and help them with their transformations. And then the rest of it is the 40% in the private sector. So there's nothing unique in our consultants between working in those two verticals. Generally speaking, we hire interested people who like to ask complex questions. So they work across all of our fields. I
know, as we were talking off camera, culture is a big part of your company, and you have served as a mentor, a role model for women in tech, women in high tech, I think, president at one point. Why is that important, in that diversity and inclusion piece, which you've really put an emphasis on at NetLogix?
So I've always been, back in the day I was a programmer before they were called coders, and it's always been a male-heavy environment that I've worked in. I'm perfectly comfortable in that environment because that's just the shape my world's always been. But I think it's important that we produce better results if we're more diverse and inclusive. So to me, it's about encouraging other women. I think it's an amazing career. It has flexibility, it has challenges. I mean, I think it's worked for me in my life. So I believe it's a good career. So I'm just trying to encourage other people to follow my path.
Do you sense those opportunities for women, as you look here in Indianapolis in IT, are getting better? I mean, thanks to your efforts and others, I think they are. But overall, how do you think the landscape is for women in tech?
So I think that's very kind of you. I think the reality is there is an amazing talent shortage. And if you rule out 50% of the population, you're not going to fill the hopper. So I think we're all being more intentional about where we're going to find our next set of tech talent from. And I think it's an amazing time for women to step up and step into this career. And there are lots and lots of people, including myself, who are willing to help you and have those conversations and share what it's like.
Very good. Congratulations, Audrey Taylor, the founder and CEO at NetLogix. 20 years in business and growing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, here's what's on tap now in tech news, served up by Sun King. Indianapolis-based SnapShift has announced plans to open an office in San Francisco. CEO Thor Wood says the move gives the hospitality staffing platform access to a strategic location with highly dense food and beverage and hospitality markets. The platform connects caterers, hotels, and sports venues with hospitality workers available to work shifts. Two former execs from Indianapolis-based Sharpen Technologies have launched a global business communications platform, Edify. Bracken Fields and Cameron Weeks say the Carmel-based company is a business communication as a service platform, combining communications, contact center, and customer success functions. And Fishers-based 1150 Academy has announced a partnership with Salesforce.com's Pathfinder training program. The academy will work with the tech giant to train Indiana workers for careers in software development, specifically administrator and developer positions. When it launched the Pathfinder program, Salesforce called it a game changer, with an ultimate goal to train about 500 people by 2020. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, teamwork and transparency at the forefront at the expanding Indianapolis-based Moser Consulting. This month's Culture Matters segment, First Person's Paul Ashley joins us to talk about how transforming an old restaurant into new office space is paying dividends. But next, a new name and big donation for Indiana University's world-renowned School for Public Policy and Environmental Affairs. We'll talk with Dean John Graham about how all of this will help recruit more of the country's most talented teachers and researchers. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Pacers. Well, officials from Subaru of Indiana Automotive in Lafayette have broken ground on a new technical training center. The 20,000 square foot facility will double the size of its current center and feature up to 6 robots, multiple assembly line simulators, classrooms, and a larger computer lab. And how Military Academy in LaGrange County closing its doors after 135 years. President Thomas Tate cites rising costs and declining enrollment as reasons why the school will not reopen for the 2019-2020 academic year. The school says it will provide support and assistance to families, faculty, and staff in making alternative plans for the next school year. Well, Indiana University's highly regarded School of Public and Environmental Affairs has a new name. It is now the Paul H. O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs in honor of the former Secretary of the U.S. Treasury and CEO of Alcoa Corporation. O'Neill graduated from IU in 1966. Dean John Graham is here now to talk about the name change and a high honor from U.S. News and World Report. And Dean Graham, welcome to the program and congratulations on the news.
Thank you. We are very excited. And boy, there are students down in the next couple of generations that we're going to be even more excited. Yeah,
and I think that's an important point to make. This gift from Paul O'Neill, highly successful, highly regarded alum, $30 million. Talk about it, renames the school, but the impact that this money is going to have. Talk about where this money is going to be deployed.
Well, about a third of it will go to financial aid for students, undergraduate and graduate students. And Mr. O'Neill says they're awarded by merit. So that will be the criteria.
Very good. And importantly, I thought this was very interesting. Part of the money, too, will fund a new leadership center that will be based in Bloomington, but also support and be affiliated with IUPUI as well.
You know, some people say leaders, you know, you're either born to be a leader or you're not. Paul O'Neill does not believe that. He believes you can train people to be leaders, and he wants the research and the case studies and the teaching materials on leadership.
Yeah. Talk about the School of Public and Environmental Affairs, one of the largest schools of its kind in the country. When you talk about, you know, the acronym SPIA, it really is a wide-ranging area of focus areas. Talk about the school, some of the real hot areas of focus.
Well, we're big in the environment, climate change. We're in healthcare. We're in public finance, trying to bring discipline to state and local governments, financial systems. So we have a broad range of activities at the O'Neill School.
And as we were talking off camera a moment ago, with the presidential election heating up already, but in the offing, the school can obviously play a role.
Oh yeah, we have some of our faculty advising the emerging Democratic candidates, and we have other faculty working with the Trump people to try to get reelected. So we're working on both sides, which is what we like to do at the O'Neill School.
Talk about this gift from Paul O'Neill and naming the O'Neill School and the impact that it has, because education is a competitive business, if you will. You're going after top faculty, you're going after bright students as well. How does this factor in to those pursuits when you're looking at researchers and faculty and other things like that?
Right. Well, it is a very competitive industry. And remember, we're competing not only against public universities, but the private universities, Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton, the Kennedy School at Harvard. So this O'Neill naming is a big deal at Indiana University.
Yeah. Also have to ask, a U.S. News & World Report, yet again, I think third consecutive year, ranks your master's program tops.
#1.
Yeah.
And we are so proud of that. And our faculty have been like tremendously energetic and diligent. And, you know, we're not as best known as some of these schools, but when you look at the rankings, we're at #1.
Yeah, very good. Well, lots happening at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. The Paul O'Neill School now at IUPUI here. Major news, and John Graham, the Dean of the school, thanks for being here. This is another example of the big impact that IUPUI and Indiana University make in our state. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, also making news around Indiana this week, Purdue University Dining and Catering transitioning away from plastic straws, and will switch to paper straws in the university's residential and retail outlets. Now, the paper straws will be sourced from a growing company, Fort Wayne-based Aardvark Straws. This will include all retail outlets, including residential on-the-go locations in the dining courts and Marriott Hall. Dining and catering, the officials there estimate 650,000 plastic straws were used on campus at dining and retail locations last year. Well, coming up next, Indianapolis-based technology solutions company Moser Consulting turned a building formerly known for restaurants, and actually failed restaurants, into a new headquarters. The result has produced a closer-knit team and improved productivity. It is the focus of this month's Culture Matters segment. And First Person's Paul Ashley is in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge. There he is. It's presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, Indianapolis-based technology solutions company Moser Consulting began with just one employee more than 2 decades ago, now has more than 200 employees in 2 cities. The company wanted a space that brought its team closer together and found it in a building that had been home to several different restaurants. In this month's Culture Matters segment, First Person's Executive Vice President and Managing Director Paul Ashley is here with the tales. And as always, Paul, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Gary.
Another success story here. Moser Consulting, as I mentioned there, started in 1996 with just one employee, and they have grown nicely. An IT consulting firm, right?
IT consultancy, many different practice areas in that area. They've grown to 200 employees and have the headquarters here in Indy and a growing office in Baltimore, about 50 employees there. So it's a real success story. They like to say they're a Google-like culture right here in the Silicon Prairie. Interesting, which is cool.
And we want to talk about that culture in a minute, but I think part of the culture and one of the interesting pieces is their new headquarters. They were spread out over several locations. Chose a location that people who've been in Indianapolis for a while probably remember in the Castleton area. I think it was the Wharf, and any number of restaurants you could see from 465, but you could never figure out how to get there.
That's right.
The restaurants never made it, but it's turned into what's been a nice headquarters.
Yeah, it's great for them because it's been allowed to put them all under one roof. The people that are here, just like the people in Baltimore, are under one roof, and they were spread out over multiple locations. It also creates visibility to the brand. Hundreds of thousands of cars on 465 Nobody needs to get there though, and so it's a perfect location. And being under one roof, designing that space in a purposeful way has created intentional collaboration and more opportunity for folks who are often out as consultants to come back together to home base.
Being intentional, let's talk about some of the keys as you see them for success at Moser. One of them we talked about off camera is transparency.
Yeah, transparency, and I think it's interesting for business leaders to think about how to be appropriately transparent, and that's something that the market demands now, the employee marketplace demands. And I think Ty, who's the founder, Ty Moser, is incredibly humble, as is the rest of his leadership team, and they are willing to talk very openly, and they have a disciplined monthly meeting process where they go, they talk about the financials of this business, they talk about the direction, they talk about new customer acquisition, and it brings everybody on the same page so people know what's happening in the business, and I think that matters. Secondarily, they have, since 2013, the first time they qualified for Best Place to Work, they've won every year. They've had you announce their name a few times. And they take that Best Place to Work data seriously. The senior team takes it in, analyzes it, and then comes up with a plan to improve every year they share with the staff.
Culture, important part of the culture too is colleague selection, hiring, that process.
Yeah, and so in an industry where the retention rate is about 35%, they see retention rates around 90. Why? Lots of reasons, but one of them I point to is their colleague selection. They do a great job hiring, and their first interview, Gary, is about, is this person a culture fit? They don't even get into technical capabilities.
Interesting, yeah.
They start with, can they fit in our culture? And that's different.
Only have 20 seconds left, but a lot of perks, a lot of cool perks, right?
Tons of cool perks. In-house gym. They've got a patio outside that they can enjoy in the warmer months. Right now, we're not doing it. They host hosted lunches 3 days a week and have tons of opportunities for them to collaborate together. It's great. Interesting story, a great Culture Matters segment and Moser Consulting here in Indianapolis. Paul Ashley from First Person. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon. It's a pleasure. All right. Well, coming up, thousands of workers are killed or injured in forklift accidents each year. Evansville-based Quarian Technologies come up with life-saving technology to track workers and equipment in warehouses. That'll be the subject of Dr. K and the Innovators when we return. Stay with us.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, resolve, cue Gary.
Well, Evansville-based Quarian Technology is focused on heavy equipment safety and stopping equipment from essentially running over people with its market-disrupting technology. Now, that technology generates critical data that can uncover even greater efficiency and profitability for firms seeking that competitive advantage. Quarian President Eric Pryor is here now, and the Innovators with Dr. K. Dr. K, take it away.
Well, thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. As you mentioned, we have Eric Pryor here. He's the founder and CEO of Quarian Technology, this new innovation in the warehouse space. So welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Dr. K. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's great to have you. In your own words, what is Quarian Technology? What's it doing?
Yeah, Dr. K, Quarian Technology is an industrial Internet of Things technology business with expertise in indoor real-time location. Indoor real-time location, basically GPS-deprived environments. And we focus primarily on using that real-time location data to stop and forklift accidents.
Gotcha, gotcha. Why the name Quarian? I was just curious when I saw that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had other companies in the past, and I wanted a name that stood out, that I knew when someone searched it, they weren't going to find anything else, and they could be unique to us when they see it. Hopefully someday they're going to think safety and innovation technology.
Yeah. I know you're an engineer by training, but I'm just curious, where'd you come up with this innovative idea?
Well, like you know, you're right. I'm an engineer by background, nearly 30 years in heavy industry. Right. And around the world and in the U.S., I've seen the dangers of mobile equipment around people, and actually not just around people, but even for the operators. And I've seen the lack of what technology hasn't provided. It's not doing the trick to save these people or to stop accidents.
Gotcha, gotcha. So what's the user benefits of Quarian?
So user benefits of our system, because we do real-time location precisely and fast, we can do 20 times a second, 6-inch precision. We can actually now take control and do things to the forklift, whereas in the past there were just alarms and lights, and they were failing to solve the problem like I mentioned. So we can configure zones pretty well anywhere in a building and cause actions to trigger or slow down or stop a forklift.
Fantastic. What do you see as the potential markets for this?
potential market I see is very large. There's over 1 million forklifts. There are over 1 million forklifts in operation in the U.S. And last year there were 260,000 new forklifts sold, and they're predicting another 8% growth annually going forward. So just looking at that growth alone on those 260,000, you know, it's a $500 million industry just in that growth part. Leave alone the million that already exist.
Wow. And that's just in the U.S., right?
That's just in the U.S.
Holy cow, that's incredible. What do you see as the growth potential for Corian?
I really believe, you know, the first few years it's going to be tough. We've got to get our name out. We've got to, this technology is disrupting, so we've got to advertise. But probably year 5, being, you know, $100+ million company and growing as big as I can dream.
I like that.
I'm going to need some help.
I like that. Funding, what have you been doing?
So funding up to date has been bootstrapped and just a very little bit of friends and family money.
Sure.
I'm at the point now I'm in some pretty good negotiations with a couple of potential investors to help us bring on some growth capital so we can hire and actually start that marketing.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So in this coming year, what's the challenge for you now upcoming? Where are you going to go from here?
I think to go back on that, based on that last question too, is marketing, getting the name out. We've spent since 2005 developing the product. It's proof of concept. It's done now. We know it works. Now it's marketing, getting the name out, starting to target those big equipment manufacturers, the big name forklift manufacturers, and the big warehouses.
That makes sense.
Getting our name out there. So
that's great. Well, as I do on each and every show, I provide some Dr. K's prescriptions to try to help. And after chatting with you and getting to know the company, I came up with what I call the ABCs of Venture Growth Challenges. Here's a little clever way to phrase it. And the A part of that was to acquire capital for the next steps, which you mentioned you're in discussions right now, which I think is fabulous. And if you can acquire the proper capital, as you and I even chatted about, you know, to take it to the next level, that'd be fantastic. The B part of it I put in there was to build a deployment team for the infrastructure and enhanced distribution. Because as we know that's going to have to happen. People are going to have to really deploy these types of technologies in there. And the C was create awareness for these forklift accidents and what your Corian can actually do, which you mentioned, that's the next step for you. So you're right on target with what I think the needs are going to be with the, as I say, the ABCs.
Yeah, those are right on target. I appreciate that.
That's great. So where can our audience find you, Eric?
Yeah, the best way to find us is our website is corian.xyz, XYZ for location.
Okay.
And look forward to hearing from people. So
sounds great. Sounds great. Well,
I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, we look forward to your success in the future.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, Gary. A really interesting innovation in the warehouse space for safety, which is going to help Hoosiers and even beyond, but founded right here in Indiana. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Dr. K, thank you. Well, Hoosiers know a lot about corn. The typical options are yellow, white, and now orange corn. A startup with roots at Purdue University is launching orange corn in the United States market and says our health stands to benefit. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta is here now, and she has more on this interesting story. Kylie.
That's right, Gary. Thank you very much. It's called Professor Torbert's Orange Corn, and it's already on the menu at about half a dozen Indiana restaurants. It was developed by an agronomy professor at Purdue, Dr. Torbert Rochford. He says the non-GMO corn is more nutrient-dense, which creates its deep orange color. Professor Torbert originally developed it to address malnutrition in Africa, but is now teaming up with his son to sink their teeth into the U.S. market with their startup NutriMaize. Chief Executive Officer Evan Rochford joins me now to tell us more. Thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you are Professor, the son, kind of running the business side of things. So tell us first, what makes your corn more nutritious?
Yeah, so the dark orange color of our corn comes from significantly increased levels of carotenoids, which these are the same kind of natural antioxidant pigments that make carrots orange and also give them their well-known health benefits.
And you have an interesting story. Tell us how you got your start in Africa before you began selling in the U.S. market.
Yeah, and so Torbert, my father, has been working on orange corn for over 20 years. He's participated in a biofortification effort called Harvest Plus. And so the idea is to naturally increase the nutrient content of foods people are already consuming to deliver vitamins or minerals they're deficient in. And so in Africa, they have vitamin A deficiencies and they eat a lot of white corn. So the idea is to get them to eat orange corn instead, and so they can get beta carotene through the corn.
And this also is good for American health, though, so it crossed the pond, so they say. Restaurants in West Lafayette, also in Indy, are already using it. Tell us what they're creating, how they're using it.
Yeah, and so we've got a number of people using it as a polenta, like Pizzology in Carmel, Bistro 501 in Lafayette. We also have people using it more as a traditional grit, Upland College Ave here in Indy, as well as Nami's, which just opened up in Lafayette. And I think what's I'm really excited about is the unique flavor and texture characteristics of our corn really make it a great platform for innovation. And so, me and Chef Natalie up at Rise came up with the concept we call a grittata, which is basically a vegan frittata that uses grits instead of eggs. And so that will be going on their menu when they open their second location.
So it's kind of like a blank canvas.
Yeah, I think it brings a lot more to the table than a traditional just white or yellow corn would, and so it makes a really great platform for doing new and interesting things that a white or yellow might not shine as much.
So if people want to get creative at home, tell us what you're selling and how people can get their hands on it.
Yeah, so right now we have 2-pound bags, retail bags of grits available on Amazon. So the best way to find those are to go to our website, ProfessorTorberts.com, and there's a link directly to the page there. Or if there's chefs that are interested, we can set up a wholesale account if they reach out to us through the website as well.
So can you tell us about any future products that you're working on or what plans you have for down the road?
Yeah, so we'll be launching a cornmeal here shortly. And longer term, we're really interested in partnering with other food companies as an ingredient supplier to get this to as many people as possible. So things like tortilla chips, snack foods, cereals, and we're already generating some really good interest, and so we're excited about that.
Very good. So from beginning to end, one thing I like about this is homegrown in Indiana.
That's right. We work with a family farmer over near Rushville, and it's milled right here in Indiana, so it's 100% Hoosier.
And you mentioned the cornmeal. What kinds of things could you create out of the cornmeal?
Yeah, so the cornmeal, it creates a really beautiful golden brown sort of corn muffin, and so people have described it as having the corn as having a nutty, buttery flavor sort of on its own, and so you don't need to put as much dairy or anything in there.
Right, and that's important for a lot of people. What are you most excited about looking forward?
I think that what's exciting is that we have the opportunity to do something similar to what's going on in Africa here in the United States. And so we don't have vitamin A deficiencies here, but most Americans could benefit from getting more carotenoids that have been associated with maintaining eye health. And so by getting those into foods people are already consuming, I think there's a really great opportunity to promote healthier diets.
And at a food expo this weekend, so good luck with that. Hope it produces some more good things for you.
All right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, still ahead in our Eye on Economic Development segment, KSM Location Advisors will talk about Lilly's request for a property tax abatement on a $90 million investment it's making in downtown Indianapolis. But first, our Eye on Education segment. We learn how the Tobias Leadership Center is connecting students and faculty with key community business leaders. The details on that coming up next. Well, the Randall Tobias Leadership Center is starting a new executive in residence program through Indiana University to help connect students and faculty with business leaders in the community. In our Eye on Education segment this week, we look at how the center is working to engage diverse leaders to meet the challenges of impact, innovation, and inclusion. The inaugural executive in residence is Neil Rothermel, the co-founder of VMS Biomarketing. And the center's executive and academic director is Julie Manning-Maggot, and they are both here to talk about the goals of the program. And welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Julie, I want to start with you. The Tobias Leadership Center, as we were talking, it's amazing. It's been around for so long, since 2006, and has had a real impact on the community in a number of ways. Talk about the Tobias Leadership Center and really what the center is all about.
Yeah, the Tobias Leadership Center includes both the Bloomington and Indianapolis campus of Indiana University and works with schools on both those campuses. Our four primary partner schools are the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, the Kelly School of Business, the SPIA School, now the O'Neill School, and the Schools of Education. And we really have the goal of creating an excellent resource of quality academic research in leadership and training and pedagogy around leadership. But that has to be put out there in the state, in the country, in order for it to be recognized and practiced. But at the same time, if those people who are out there in the field practicing, making really successful organizations and bringing those ideas of how do you innovate, how do you have a positive impact on the community, how do you be inclusive in what you are serving, if they don't come back and work with us and give us their experiences, then we can't create that quality of the training that we want, of the research that we want. So it's really a two-way bridge to create that together.
And this new executive in residence program would seem to me to be a perfect way, to create that bridge. Talk about the goals of this executive in residence program.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So we are thrilled to have Neil as our inaugural executive in residence. And in that role, he's really going to be somebody who helps that flow across the bridge, make sure it's going both ways and have quality interactions with our students, our faculty, but also what we can bring to not only the business sectors, but not-for-profit, public service, education.
Yeah. Neil, you are the co-founder of VMS Biomarketing, a healthcare education company based here in Indianapolis. Talk a little bit about the company, because you have grown 20 plus years into a nice sized company.
Yes, well, we started 20 years ago, and the company's evolved dramatically and continues to grow exponentially, which is a good problem to have. Our mission is to empower patients, and we do that by deploying networks of nurse educators to be able to provide patient support programs.
This executive in residence program, you are a Tobias Fellow, so you're very familiar and connected with the Tobias Leadership Center. What does this executive in residence opportunity mean for you? What do you hope to get out of it?
This is a really exciting opportunity. I think leadership is at the core of every successful organization, and so it's the most important topic that we can talk about and bridge that gap, as Julie said, between academia and practitioners. And it's a really exciting opportunity to be able to bring those two areas together. And we're very fortunate in Indiana to have such great academic institutions and such successful leaders to be able to bring together. So I'm excited to do that.
And as we were talking off camera, Neil, you talk about creating this kind of this one-stop shop, if you will.
Yes, I think that's the goal, so that students and faculty feel that they have a one-stop shop, an easy resource to be able to connect with successful practitioners, leaders, and then the same for people who want to get engaged with helping the next generation and connecting with academia, that they have an easy resource to be able to do that as well.
And Julie, this executive in residence program just beginning with Neil as the inaugural person involved there. As you look at the impact that the center is having on leadership, is such an important issue, such a topical issue in business, certainly, the impact that the Tobias Leadership Center is having.
Yeah, we're really excited about this new program, and it builds on where we've been. The Tobias Fellows that many people are aware of now exist all over the country and are at the top leadership of organizations around the country. And we're going to continue to develop great Tobias Fellows. Their alumni group, if you will, is called the Tobias Leadership Network, and so we continue to keep those great leaders involved and learning and growing, and we're learning from them. And we also have the oral history program, sort of source material of great leaders, the LEAD conference, and the Hazlett Forum, where we shine the spotlight on women in leadership roles.
Very good. Tobias Leadership Center continues to make a huge difference, and now with this new executive in residence program, I know we'll continue to do the same. Julie Manning-Magid, also Neil Rothermel, thank you both for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Right. And a reminder, all of our Eye on Education segments can be found at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. And if you have a story idea or a suggestion, please send them to our Eye on Education producer, Tara Twig, at twig@growindiana.net. Well, an Indiana orthodontic practice has launched a campaign supporting a nonprofit to honor former Butler University basketball star Andrew Smith. Smith tragically passed away in 2016 after a battle with cancer. Inspired by his widow, Samantha Smith, who started Project 44, Gorman and Bunch Orthodontics is doing its part to get more people to join the bone marrow registry. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more.
Former Butler Bulldog star Andrew Smith was literally larger than life. Clocking in at just under 7 feet tall, the former Bulldog center helped lead Butler to improbable back-to-back national title appearances in 2010 and 2011. But perhaps it's Smith's off-the-court battle with cancer that he lost in 2016 that continues to make the biggest impact on the lives of others, due in large part to his widow Samantha Smith, who helped co-found Project 44, a nonprofit created to get more people to join the National Bone Marrow Registry. And it was Samantha's message at one Central Indiana orthodontic event that inspired Gorman & Bunch Orthodontics to help bring awareness to Project 44 with a campaign of their own. Be the change.
She was our opening speaker, and she had the entire room crying by the time she finished, but it was a true story. It had a lot of passion, and we said, hey, let's see if we can be a platform for Project 44 and for Sam, and see if we can help her out in getting more applicants on the registry. We started digging into the details, and we found out 1 in 430 people are a match. And so our goals shifted a little bit, and we said we have March Madness, we have Project 44, let's help Sam out.
They really have embraced us and our mission and values. They've trained their staff, they're actively recruiting patients in office. It's really unparalleled when we have a partner like Gorman & Bunch come forward and do what they're doing for us. It's through those types of partnerships that we see the culture starting to change, with the idea that if we get in this together, then we can really make a difference, we can save lives.
If we can make one match, all the efforts are totally worth it. I want Andrew Smith, his name, to live on. I want Project 44 and what Sam's created to have more awareness, to bring awareness to cancer, what the bone marrow registry really does, and get people onto that registry so that as humans on this earth that's spinning around, we can truly make a difference in people's lives.
Mary Rachel Redman, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Also this week, the CEO of Greenwood-based company has been named the 2019 Small Business Person of the Year for Indiana. Casey Wright is the CEO of Wright's Gymnastics Academy and Ninja Zone. She is the daughter of Bob and Dana Wright, who started the Gymnastics Academy in 1975 and also is one of the coaches. Coming up, Eli Lilly and Company wants a property tax abatement for its $90 million project in downtown Indianapolis. Leadership from KSM Location Advisors will look at whether providing incentives is good public policy. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by Star Commercial Banking, Indiana born for Indiana business. Well, this week, Eli Lilly and Company received final approval for property tax abatement on a $90 million investment the company is making at its technology center in downtown Indianapolis. There were some critics questioning whether providing incentives to this project is good public policy. Here now to talk about tax abatement and its broader implications, pleased to be joined by national site selection firm KSM Location Advisors CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp. And welcome, as always,
Thank you
to the show. It was made a fair amount of news this week. Eli Lilly and Company's major investment in insulin production in downtown Indianapolis, $90 million investment. I think the abatement request was for about $10 million. There were some on council and others who opposed that, which I think raised some eyebrows because you look at Lilly and Lilly's commitment to Indianapolis and those types of things. Talk about this particular proposal and your perspectives on that abatement request.
Well, I would think you agree with me. In my mind, it was totally appropriate to support our largest employer and this huge corporate asset to our community with this type of investment. I understand some of the criticisms about it. There wasn't a lot of job creation, that type of thing, but I don't think Lilly is someone we start asserting our muscle in terms of close scrutiny.
And was that the kind of the rub for a lot of people? I don't know, or very few jobs. It certainly keeps jobs in Indianapolis and is a big investment in downtown, but the jobs were not a big factor.
Yeah, typically when you have tax abatement being offered, it's a company committing to offer new jobs, and in this case, it was a job retention. But to Katie's point, Lilly has been downtown forever. They've committed to being here. They've committed not to selling the company. They're a company that if they say tax abatement's part of this decision, I think you have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
And Lilly, a company obviously that can make investment any place they want to make it.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about tax abatement more broadly because it's something we hear about a lot in economic development circles. It's a big part of the incentive game. Give us the kind of the ABCs, Katie, and Tim jump in there too, but on tax abatement, what it's really all about?
Well, I really hate the name tax abatement because it's a misnomer. It makes it sound like there's some sort of tax holiday and no taxes being paid, when in reality, even with like a 10-year property tax abatement, the company's paying taxes on land, on equipment, and some taxes on the building. So in a 10-year traditional cycle, you save about 50% of the property taxes you'd otherwise pay. And so it's a way of kind of easing in the burden of local taxes to new and expanding employers.
And everybody, or many states and municipalities use this, right? And some more aggressive maybe than what's seen here in Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's not the only state that offers tax abatement. Most states do. Even if you look at some of our counterparts, Ohio has a much more aggressive tax abatement structure than Indiana does. So it's not as though it's used unreasonably here, and I think there's a lot of controls on it. It's something that has to go through a vote through a local council. It's not something that just someone can sign at their desk and offer it to them. So there are a lot of controls already in place.
As you look at the list of things, if I'm a company wanting to expand or to relocate, where does tax abatement fall? How important a tool is tax abatement in the economic development game?
Katie and I always talk about incentives. They are never going to be the reason a company locates someplace, but they can be a tiebreaker, and they can certainly, one thing that we talk about a lot of times, and this is true with the Lilly deal, this abatement might not influence this decision, but they will remember it the next time they're looking to make an investment in that community. And so I think you have to look at the long play with some of these projects, and if we offer abatement this time, will that make the company more likely to continue to invest at that location?
And tax abatement in this case, we're talking about a big company in Indianapolis, but abatement is an issue, especially when we talk about property tax caps and the issues that folks around the state are facing. This is becoming, I assume, a bigger, the issue's not going away.
Oh, it's getting a lot of scrutiny, especially from county government, because with the property tax caps, local government is really strapped for cash in some instances, and property tax abatement can take pieces of that away. But, you know, the counter argument is you wouldn't get any of that tax rebate, or that tax revenue if you weren't incentivizing that type of investment to begin with. But any of our 92 counties, I can guarantee you there are ongoing, sometimes heated discussions about how to appropriately use that tool.
Well, one thing that we talk about is, you know, the questions on Lilly, those were good questions. They should be asked. Any kind of incentive request should be scrutinized, but to just have a one-size-fits-all criticism of all deals, that's really not the best interest of good policy.
Very good. Great discussion. Interesting topic, tax abatement for Lilly and more broadly for the rest of the state of Indiana. Tim Cook, Katie Culp, thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, more than 40 million people in more than 100 countries use Kronos's workforce management and human capital management cloud every day. Learn how they are helping tens of thousands of organizations. Plus, in Ion Education, a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will fund tutoring spaces called Learning Commons in 4 Indianapolis schools. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.